Hi, friends. Um, just a quick video about raw milk. I am no raw milk expert and do not purport to be. So, this is just for fun and information purposes. But you should certainly do what your body and your good team of health providers think is good for you. Um, but because there is so much confusion around raw milk, I thought it's always helpful to just know what other people are doing. I am in a raw milk community online, um, and that was very helpful in sort of dipping my toes back in that water. Um, the previous time that I tried raw milk was when I lived in Amish country and got some at a farmer's market and took it home and drank. I don't know how much I drank, but I actually don't even remember what it tasted like or that it was very life changing at all. But I know that I had some and I know that I got sick. Um, I don't remember how I got rid of the critters, but I remember that it didn't, and maybe it was fine, and maybe it was just resetting my gut biome, and I didn't know that at the time. That might be. I do remember that I had diarrhea. Fine, and maybe it was just resetting my gut biome, and I didn't know that at the time. That might be. I do remember that I had diarrhea. But again, if you're not on a lot of probiotics, anytime you put new, really good flora into your system, you can have diarrhea because it's the die off of the bad stuff that's in your system. So it might have been that. But I do remember that it certainly didn't change my life. It didn't taste especially good or anything. And I know that I got it from an Amish vendor, and I know from living near a lot of Amish communities that, there's not, there seems to be a misconception that something that comes from an Amish community is going to be safer, more organic, or whatever. It's definitely not. I do know that. The Amish communities are very, um, very commonly, and I'm sure this isn't probably every community, but many live right on the line of, okay, we want to sell to the outside world, but not adhere to the laws that everybody else has to go by who's within that selling space. And also, we want to um, use fertilizer. There's a lot of DuPont that happens. Okay, so there's a lot of like conventional herbicide, glyphosate types of like really scary chemicals that are going into the things that are being made in many Amish communities. And so you're not getting purity there, you're just getting even less regulated food overall. Also, Amish communities are it's part of the religious tradition to actually cook and cook and cook things, and so everything is very, very, very cooked. For the same reason, actually, that raw foodists don't cook things. It's um, out of a recognition of the sanctity of the food. And so for raw foodists, that is we act that out by having things raw and not doing things to them and saying they're in good form just like they are, and that's how they work in our body properly. In the Amish community, the opposite, the same belief leads to the opposite behavior, which is to say that since the belief is that they are living things, we would never eat them alive, if you will. It would be disrespectful and like scary and harmful to eat them alive. You have to make sure that they are dead, dead, dead in order to eat them. So, and also because, you know, they don't have refrigeration, and so they need to have um, canned things and so forth. That's part of it too. So all that to say, that's my background in raw milk. I now live in eastern Texas, about 15 miles from a raw milk farm, and I started it a little over 2 weeks ago. I got a half gallon. And out of that half gallon, if you think of a half gallon plastic jug, it's plastic, but about this much of it was cream. Now I shook it up a little bit to put it into my glass container. The problem was it really never separated again, which was kind of cool in terms of drinking the milk because it was delicious. But when it came to, oh, wait, I want to separate some of this out and make some butter, like it just wasn't feasible to do. It was already in there. Um, it's not homogenized, it's important to say. But so the farm that I get it from, they milk it same day. I know that when people are getting stuff that has flavors to it, some people's milk tastes like hay and different things like that. I would have to imagine that that is because the people are supplementing way too much with hay and are not free ranging their animals. The first time I went over to my farm to say hello, their animals were in a pen and it was kind of muddy and stuff, and they were just eating hay. But there is a larger property. It was very very cold at the time. When I went by today, they were grazing and way off doing their thing. So whatever is happening on that land must be something good because the milk that's coming out of there, like you couldn't give better to the Queen of England. Like it's really good. It is exactly how you think milk is going to taste as a little kid, but then it never ever quite does. It basically tasted like how you want melted ice cream to taste, but it also never tastes like that. So it was excellent. What I did find though, I thought because of cortisol, um, because people with cortisol disorders tend to need to eat some protein and fat at the beginning of the day in order to get our stuff back sorted out. And because that's so incredibly difficult to do with the cortisol disorder, I thought, well, let me use the milk for that. That could be an easy way to get that. So I tried that at the beginning of the day. Not much cream in it, just mostly the milk. And it gave me a major sugar high, and it was not pleasant. So I won't be doing that again. Um, but the rest of the time, I kind of just drank whatever would come out of the jar, which I suspect most of the time was just cream, and it was very tasty. So, um, what I ended up doing, I just did a couple of ounces at a time because I didn't know how quickly my stomach would adjust. I actually didn't have any problem with my stomach though, like at all. Now, what I should say though is that most people I know in the chronic illness community either aren't on a probiotic or only on like one, and they're pretty new to it. I'm not new to it. I've been doing it probably 15 years. I use very expensive probiotics that I know work for me and that everyone I've ever recommended them to really, responded well to. So I use the Garden of Life probiotics, the refrigerated ones, not the shelf stable ones, which don't work at all for some reason. I just started this brand and I'm very unimpressed with it. A friend recommended it. It works really well for him, but then I realized, well, he's also like at least 20 years younger than me. So that may be why it works really well for him, but not for me. It's called Seed. Um, it's a shelf stable one. It's in proper dark glass, which is really nice. Um, it's it's enteric coated, so it will make it all the way to the gut, which is great. I thought that would be really helpful, but it just is not. I think he was anticipating that, and he had mentioned, it just kind of takes some time. For me, it doesn't. My body like knows really fast, and I've tried this for well over a week at this point, and it's not changed my life at all. And it's not cheap. So, but I'm also on other things. Like through my doctor, I have a very particularly made Pro IgG. This one, oh, it says it's non-dairy, which is interesting because it always reminds me of whey protein, but I guess it's not. I guess it's non-dairy types of protein that are similar. And then this is called GI Thrive. It's got some different stuff in it, but I can't read it very well, really. L-alanine, L-glutamine. Yeah, but it's like a particular formula that they make in their compounding pharmacy, and it's very particularly sourced, et cetera, et cetera. So, like, I have a lot going on that's supporting my gut, and I'm also taking, at least 6 grams of good coconut charcoal a day when I'm not chelating. So, all of those things mean that my gut is a different space than maybe somebody who hasn't done that support for a long time who is ill. And also, like I have more knowledge than the average bear about how to eat clean and so forth. And so if you don't have that knowledge, if you don't have that background of like ratcheting down the inflammation, then you might have a different experience on the raw milk, and it might take you a lot longer to adjust. Nonetheless, I did start with only a teaspoon a day, and I do know people who have just done like a teaspoon a day for a week, then maybe a tablespoon a day for a week, and then you kind of go up from there. There are also people who go the way other direction and just go on complete milk diets. Some of them end up just having bowel movements that are white. I would say if you're having a bowel movement that is white, you're just wasting money on milk, because just like if you are having corn come out in your poo, or you eat beets and your poo becomes a beautiful purple color, that means you're not taking in the nutrients from those things. Same thing with the milk. Your body hasn't adjusted to that yet, which is why babies, when they're first starting to exist like on planet Earth, it is their bowel movements are very liquid, very light colored. They're not solid, and then later, as their gut biome adjusts to breast milk or to whatever it is that they're eating, then they'll make solid bowel movements. So, but for me, I didn't have any transition time at all. I just, bought a half gallon for that 1 week, and then I found out that I couldn't get any for like 4 days after I ordered it. And so I've been I could tell that my body really needed it. The main thing that I've really ended up liking it for is salad dressing. Just, pouring a little bit of it on top of a salad, and then just like putting a little bit of salad dressing, because most salad dressings are not really good for you anyway. So there's so much flavor in the cream and in the milk, and it's a lovely light dressing, but it's delicious. It's delicious. So so that's another way. I'm gonna try this week. Today I did get more, about 1 gallon, and I poured off a bunch of cream. I got a very solid quart of cream out of it and put them way in the back of the fridge to stay nice and cold. And then when I'm ready to make butter, I will process those. But I still left a good inch. There was still a good inch of cream on top, which you really need, I'm finding, because if you don't have the cream on top of the milk with it, you get that sugar high, and it's not like, that's not good. That's not what we were intended to have, right? So so it is important to have the fat in there. So that's what I'm finding with the raw milk. It's not been difficult at all, but certainly, everyone, I think, should start out slow, because it is a completely different biome, and completely different micro critters that we're adding to the belly, since we're not used to eating raw food, quite especially raw animal food. But there's a lot in there, and you also want to make sure that you're getting it from a farm that is feeding its young first, if it has young on the property, because Indian studies indicate, and which have been studying this for way longer than America has been here, for sure, and because they consider the cow to be so sacred, there have been plenty of studies indicating that when there are young there, if you take the milk before you feed the young, there are toxins, there are human toxins in there, because we're not supposed to get that milk. The baby cow is supposed to get the milk. So this is how smart nature is. I don't remember. It's been a while since I saw those studies. They've probably been wiped from the internet by now, by Merck or something, since Merck loves to wipe good information off about nutrition. So so anyway, that's what I can tell you about that. So I hope that's helpful to somebody as you're thinking through what you want to do with raw milk.